Oh, hello YouTube. On today's episode of Drunk Classics, we are maybe stretching the use of the word classic a little bit because I am reading Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. I am so excited right now. You don't even know. I mean, this did come out in 1976, but it was written in 1972, so that makes it 50 years old, okay? Or just about. I'm saying it counts as a classic at this point. And of course, I don't really think I need to go into what I am expecting from this. We've all probably seen the movie. I have seen the movie. I've enjoyed the movie. I'm pretty sure the book's going to be fairly different, and I am excited. I am expecting frilly cravats. I'm expecting vampire shit. I'm expecting angst. I am like way into it. So excited. And also, I am planning on like plowing through this. I'm going to read this in 2 days. Might be ambitious, however, I do have the audiobook from the library and it's going to expire in 2 days. So the decision was made for me. I kind of waited to the last minute here. Over this, I will read probably the first half today, drink a bunch, come chat with you guys. Hello. I put in my vampire teeth because I was like, it's a vampire book. I got vampire teeth. I bought them for our vampire party for the Blazing Bodice Rippers book club, and I haven't worn them since, so I put them in. And you know what? It's a terrible idea to do for this video because I'm going to keep drinking and I'm just going to swallow them, so they're going to come out, but I wanted the gag to be shown. I haven't been drinking as much as usual because honestly, it's just really good and I just want to like pay attention to everything, but I drank enough that like I'm loosey-goosey. Like let's recap because I read half the book today. It was a lot. The book opens, right? And there's this vampire, right? His name is Louis, and he's in a room, and there's like this kid there. Well, not like kid, like young man kid. And he's like, I'm gonna give you an interview for reasons. He doesn't really like say why, he just is like, I'm gonna do it. And the kid's there because he's like, yeah, because you say you're a vampire. He just thinks he's crazy, but he's just like, no, look at me in the light. And the kid's like, oh shit, it's a vampire. So immediately, the kid, you know, I wouldn't just believe people saying they're vampires either, but the kid is just very much like, doesn't have any self-preservation. He's just like, oh, should I leave? Nope, never occurs to him. He's like, I'm gonna stay, whatever. Go back. We travel back in time to the old-timey times, and it's like 1791, I think. 1790s. That era-esque, right? Louis came from France and he lives in New Orleans now, and he owns this plantation, right? A big one. And that's what he does. He's a big plantation owner guy, and he's like 25 and he's just doing that. And he has like a bunch of like siblings and a mom, and like he's like the man of the house, the breadwinner, so to speak. So he has to take care of everybody. Very Anthony Bridgerton, let's just be real. Except like his kid brother, right? He is, you know, like the kind of religious where it's scary because he was like Joan of Arc level religious. He's like, the Virgin Mary told me we need to sell the plantation so I can take all the money and go back to France and spread Catholicism, which was already in France. I don't know why he thought he needed to spread it over there. But anyway, we're gonna move past that because Louis like, bro, what? No, go pray. Just leave me be. And the brother didn't take it good. And his brother, he's like, okay, and he just kills himself. So he just, oh, I can't, you won't sell the plantation, I'm gonna jump off the roof. It's very much an over-exaggerated reaction to someone saying no to something. But obviously Louis, he feels very guilty about it because you'll come to know, Louis is the most angsty, self-hating, borderline suicidal person slash vampire. He lives to whine and mope. But anyway, this is the reason. He actually has a reason right now where he's like, oh, my brother died. I feel like it's my fault. I'm gonna go out to New Orleans and just be wild and all over town. I'm just gonna get drunk. I don't care what happens. I am hurting inside, so I'm putting alcohol in me. And so one night he gets like accosted by this guy, right? And he bites him and he's like, oh no, what's happening? And Lestat's like, hey, you want to be a vampire? Because I'll make you a vampire. And he's like, okay, because he didn't really give a shit about anything. And like Lestat turns him into a vampire, right? And it works really well for Lestat too. Lestat, he's been a vampire longer and he needed a buddy. And he's like, hey, you got a lot of money, you got a big house, and I've been wilding all over New Orleans too, and I need to like maybe have some distance. So like I'm gonna go move into your plantation with you. I'm gonna bring my blind dad. Like Lestat has a blind dad he takes care of. Not expecting that at all. But anyway, he and the dad, they come live at the plantation. And, you know, Louis and Lestat are the creepy little creeps who only come out at night, and they don't eat any food, and they just act weird all the time. And of course, you know, like all of the people they have enslaved are going to notice this and be like, something's not right here. and that's what they do for a while. They just live at the plantation, and Lestat like kind of teaches Louis vampire shit. Realistically, he's just the shittiest teacher that's ever taught anything. He like doesn't know anything either. So he's just like, yeah, you gotta like bite this guy and kill him, and then like you don't kill him all the way because then you'll die for reasons. Like Lestat actually is like the biggest difference I have found between book and movie version, because book version Lestat, low-key kind of an idiot. Like he's just the dumbest, and like they do say in the book he has like a 3rd grade education, and he didn't seem like he was very wealthy, because, you know, he's taking care of his blind dad in the little house in New Orleans. I don't really know much about his origins here, and he's just stupid, and he doesn't know anything, and he's like got a chip on his shoulder, and he likes wearing pretty things, so he takes all of Louis' money and just spends it. And he's just like bizarre, because I was expecting like a classy like guy who's just like morally bankrupt, and no, he's just like an idiot. And Louis, he's already feeling kind of very conflicted about things, because, you know, he has to like kill people to live, and he's like, I'm sad about this, even though he fully knows he can eat animals. Like Lestat eats animals every once in a while. You can eat animals, like that's fine. And then he's also double sad about it because like murder makes him so horny. Like the way they describe murder in the book, like they're horny for murder, both of them, all the time. Like I mentioned earlier, all of the enslaved people at the plantation, they're suspicious. They're like, something's not right with these two guys. There's something off here. We know it. And so they all get suspicious, and like things just keep happening, and things kind of come up to like this fever pitch where finally their secret's out. Like, because fucking Lestat being an idiot and just being like, oh, I'm gonna show my teeth to people because I'm an idiot, and then like, oh no, they have to go kill all the enslaved people and like burn down the plantation and run for their lives because they're gonna get killed. Damn it, Lestat. He's just the worst. He's just a buffoon. And that's also a big part of contention, because I think a lot of like just part 1 of this book, it's all Louis and Lestat's relationship with each other, because Louis just hates Lestat. He's like, you are the literal worst. You are like a cancerous little thing that has attached itself to my bank account. I don't like you. You don't know shit about being a vampire. You can go fuck yourself. Like, he is not living for Lestat. Like, he's not into him. And Lestat just doesn't have like the social intelligence to read the room. He's just like, no, we're best friends. And I'm like, eh. And he's also just kind of like mean back, because that's just how he is. He's just stupid and mean. But yet Louis stays with them anyway. You know, they keep staying together. And I think it's mainly just because, like, there's no other person like Louis that he knows. So he's like, well, the devil I know, I guess. He just stays with Lestat anyway, because, like, he doesn't know any other vampires. So who else is going to go hang out with? And that's what they do. They just hang out in New Orleans, and they live together, which is kind of progressive for the era, I guess. People thought probably things about them that weren't vampire things. They probably thought they were boyfriends, but who knows? I don't know. It was New Orleans. It was pretty loosey-goosey back then, and is now. They're fine, they're doing their thing, but like, you know, Louis, he's so conflicted all the time. I mean, he tries not to eat people that much, and he pushes it too long, and then he kind of gets super hungry, and he makes bad decisions. Like, everyone makes bad decisions when they're hangry. Like, I know, I feel you, but like, at least I don't eat people. One night, Louis, he's off, he's looking for rats to eat, because that's what he does. However, he comes across his house, right? In the house, there's a little girl, and she's with her dead mom, and her mom has been dead for like a while. It's gross. And the little kid is like, I'm sad, my mom won't wake up, you know, like, wow, this is sad. And like, you know, Louis had an opportunity here. This was an opportunity for him to not be, you know, the evilest, and he could have just been like, oh, okay, You know what? He could have done the bare minimum and just walked back out the door. He didn't even have to stay. He could have just left. But no, he bites the little girl and he drinks her blood. And then he's like, oh no. And he runs away and Lestat shows up and he's like making fun of him. He's like, oh, look at me. I'm Louis. I'm so morally superior. I eat children. You know? So they have this really antagonistic relationship. And since they have such a shitty relationship, Louis keeps threatening to leave Lestat like all the time. It's such a toxic relationship they have. Louis like, I'm gonna leave. And Lestat's like, no, you're not. And then he's kind of starting to feel like maybe Louis trying to leave. So he's like, I'm gonna trap him. So you know what Lestat does? He does some fucked up stuff. He goes and finds that little girl that Louis was eating because he didn't kill her, and he like adopts her basically. He's like, oh yeah, I'm her dad. I'm gonna take this orphan. Like, because no one cares about orphans ever. When did people start caring about orphans, you know? Because like, I think about Charles Dickens' book and people thought they were like pests. I don't know. Like, when did people start caring about orphans? Not now. Not in this era. So he just takes the girl and then they turn her into a vampire. Her name is Claudia. So now they have a 5-year-old girl vampire. She's 5. Like, another difference here, because we've all seen the movie. The kid is a little older than 5. Like, 5 is really little. She's 5. and Lestat just made her into a vampire because he knew Louis would stay and, like, take care of her. It's literally a trap baby. Lestat had a trap baby to keep Louis. It's like, oh my gosh, the toxicity of this relationship. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like popcorn. It's like daytime talk shows. You are not the father. You are the father. It's that, but with vampires. And then again, things just go on from there. So now it's Louis and Lestat living with this little 5-year-old vampire girl they made. So it's kind of also, again, a little progressive for the era. Like, hey, here's this little girl, Claudia, living with her 2 dads, you know? There you go. She has 2 dads, and they're all vampires, and they eat people. Because, like, Claudia, she's also 5, so she has, like, a child's brain. She doesn't really understand right and wrong yet. She's 5, and she's being taught by Lestat. Not a good teacher. We've established this. And so, like, she's, like, cool with being a vampire. She accepts she's a vampire and what that means and the morality of that very early. And that's what the big problem with Louis is. He keeps like saying, I have morals, nah. And like, she's like, but you're not a human. Like, you're not human, Louis. Your morals don't apply to who you are now. But that's why Louis is the whiniest whiner. But Claudia doesn't have that because she's 5. So she just takes to being a vampire like real good. And then they just live together for like a really long time. And it's like 65 years later. They've been together for a long time. Claudia's 5 and also 70 at the same time. She's also an old woman in a 5-year-old body. And like Louis' relationship with Claudia is so weirdly phrased in the book. Okay, here's the deal. Like, I get it. Claudia is an adult, technically. She's 70. However, in a 5-year-old body, and he keeps talking to her that he wants to feel her heart beating against his, and he loves her, and he wants to, like, take care of her, and she's his only real companion. So it's a very much like an adult love relationship, but she's a little girl body child thing. And like, bro, she was 5 when you met her. She's still physically 5 now. Maybe cool your jets. Eventually it finally like comes out because Claudia's like, who made me a vampire? Who did this to me? I want to be a woman and I can't. I'm stuck as a 5-year-old. Who fucking did this to me? And Louis eventually tells her what happened. And so she obviously hates both of them now because she's like, you guys did this to me. Fuck both of you. But she really hates Lestat more because Louis just like killed her. Lestat made her into this. Like, he did the worst thing. If you had a pick, Lestat fucked up more. And also, he's just the literal worst all the time. He's just terrible and very boorish and stupid. And also, like, really into young boys. Like, uncomfortably, like, into young boys. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Like, it's uncomfortable. And since in Claudia, she starts getting plans. She goes up to Louis. She's like, Louis, we gotta get rid of Lestat because he's never gonna let us leave him. We gotta kill this guy. We gotta kill him. And he's like, I don't know how to kill vampires. You know how to kill vampires? Lestat doesn't know either. He's a piece of shit. So he's trying to be the voice of reason here. And he's like, hey, why don't I just give Lestat like a bunch of money and we'll just tell him we're going on vacation and we'll be back and he just won't know that we're leaving him. You know, Louis trying to be the pacifist here. And Claudia's like, nope, fuck that. I'm gonna kill him. Like, she's like really into killing him. This is like her plan. Claudia, she finally like, and Lestat have like a meeting. They haven't been talking for a while. And she's like, hey, like, listen, I want to be friends again. I brought you a present. So she brings over like these two little orphan boys. Again, people are just giving out orphans. Like, why? When did people start caring about orphans? Because they didn't. They were just giving orphans to people. No questions asked in this world. So she brought like two little like orphan boys over and they're all drugged. And she's like, hey, I know you like little boys. Like, want to drink one? And he's like, ooh, like, maybe I do. Because it's uncomfortable how much he likes young boys. However, the big switcheroo here. Claudia poisoned the boys because, you know, Claudia doesn't care if she kills orphans either, but she like poisoned them first. So like Lestat, he drinks one of them. He's like, yum, 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 boys, I like to eat them. And he's like, oh wait, I feel funny. Oh no, there's poison. And he gets all like loopy and he's like, I can't move. I've been poisoned. And Claudia's like, haha, motherfucker, I'm killing you now. And she like cuts him up and she slashes his throat and he bleeds everywhere and he just shrivels up like a little prune. And they're like, oh shit, like, I think he's dead. Like, look how shrivelly he is. We did it. Now the problem is they have a body they need to get rid of, right? So she and Louis, they wrap him up and they take him out to the swamp and they just throw him in the swamp. And they're like, here you go, alligators, eat this prune person. They just throw him in the swamp and they think they've killed them. They're free. They're going to have a good time. And that's just kind of what they do. They're just like, they just hang out. They don't do a whole lot in the book. Like, you think they have like adventures? No, they just like live. They just like sit at home, read books, kill people. They don't have a lot of adventures. They just like be. So now that Lestat's out of the picture, right? Louis and Claudia, they're like, we gotta figure out about vampire shit because we don't know nothing. There's gotta be other vampires. And Claudia's real smart. She's like, hey, I read a lot of books. They have them all over Europe. Like, I've read a lot of books. Like, there's European vampires. There's a lot. And he's like, okay, like, I got this. We got a boat. We're going to go to Europe. We're going to look for some vampires. And she's like, down. And so they're going to get on a boat and go to Europe. And they have their tickets. And it's the night. They're going to go to Europe. But then, oh no, the shit hit the fan because wouldn't you know, fucking Lestat shows back up. He's not dead. He's just very angry. I guess he ate the alligators rather than the alligators eating him. Like, he does not look good. Like, he's still kind of pruny and he's got scars and stuff and he does not look good. He looks decrepit, but like, oh boys, he's still kicking. So, oh no, he found us. So they have to run away and like Claudia's all scared. She's like, he's gonna kill me. And like Louis like, burn. Like, this is what Louis does. He just burns shit down when he gets in trouble. He burned his plantation down and he burns the apartment down and Lestat's in there because he's still kind of decrepit. He can't like run. So he's like in the burning building. So I'm like, dude, just doubling down on your killing of Lestat. And then they leave. And then that's it. That's the end of part 1 of the book. A lot happened, but like a lot of the time they were just like being vampires and not doing anything interesting. They're just like living. But that's also about 50% of the way through the book. And I know this book has 4 parts. So 2, 3, and 4 is all the second half. They're going to be much shorter parts. But I finished the first half today. And I have been drinking while I've been doing this video. So, you know, things are becoming fuzzy. And I think it's time to stop. And I'm going to come back tomorrow. And I'm going to finish the second half of this. And I'm excited. Because I haven't been saying this. I've been like talking shit a bit. But like, it's honestly very good. I'm really enjoying it. I couldn't put it down. It's a very fun book. Oh, hello, YouTube. It is day 2 of Interview with the Vampire, and you know what? Yesterday, I read so much of that book. Like, part 1 is almost the whole first half of that book, and then there's 2, 3, and 4 for the second half, so I'm thinking all these are going to be fairly short. But I am excited to see how this is going to shake out. I have some ideas, but I'm fairly certain there's going to be a lot of differences because there were so many differences like in the first half, so I am excited. Okay, I'm just going to brace myself. I'm going to get ready, and I'm going to check in with you guys again after I have finished Interview with the Vampire because I'm about to go on a journey. Hello. I finished it. I finished the whole book. Oh boy, like, oh, it was really good. I finished it, and I have got a lot to go over. Oh boy, part 2, 3, and 4. Like, the whole second half of the book. Like, things go down. It is crazy. Let's go. It starts off with Louis and Claudia. They're on a boat. They're going to Europe because they're trying to find more vampires, right? And nothing really happens on the boat trip. They're just, like, on a boat. There's, like, a strange fever that's been killing some of the passengers, and that's odd. But they're fine. And, I mean, they didn't kill a lot of them. There's a couple. So I'm like, hey, restraint. Okay, good job, Claudia. She was the one who's been killing people, not Louis. But, yeah, it's restraint. And then they finally get to Europe, and they're going to, like, Eastern Europe first, because that's where all the, like, vampires are supposed to be. Finally, they get to this little town. I think it's, like, in Germany. They're speaking German there, so I'm assuming it's in Germany. And they get there, and the whole town is, like, really scared of vampires. They're like, oh shit, vampires are around. Do you guys know there's vampires around? And, like, Louis and the kid are like, tell us more. Louis and Claudia are like, please tell us more about your vampires. Where are they? Where can we find them? They get out of this little, like, tavern they were in where everyone in town's, like, scared. And they go to look for the vampires. And they said, oh, they're in the ruins. So they go over to the ruins. They're real jazzed up. They're like, yeah, we're going to find some vampires. This is going to be great. And they get there, and they are immediately very disappointed in what is happening. Because, like, these are not cool vampires. These are not, like, Louis and Claudia type vampires. These are, like, rotted zombie vampires. No talking, just grunts. And, like, I don't know, it's like Nosferatu zombies. Like, it's just really bad. Like, oh no. And the vampire's all rotted and crazy, and he tries to kill Louis, and Louis' like, I'm a vampire too, no! And, like, they fight, and they end up killing the Nosferatu zombie vampire guy. They kill him, and they're like, well, shit. It's a dead end. Let's go find some more. Maybe we just found, like, the one bad one. And then, like, through a lot of Eastern Europe, their travels, like, they just keep finding rotted zombie Nosferatu vampires. They just keep finding bad ones, like, shitty ones. And they're like, are we the flukes? Is this what vampires are supposed to be? Like, no, this can't be right. This can't be right. And they're just very disappointed in the whole trip. So Louis like, you know what? I'm French. Let's go back to Paris. Like, Paris is fancy. There's gotta be vampires there. It's a big city. And so that's just what they do. They decide they're gonna go over to Paris. Eventually, vampires just kind of make contact with them. And they're like, hey, we got a vampire theater. You should come to the theater. Come hang out. And Louis like, okay. So he and Claudia, they go to this little vampire theater. Mind you, it's like called Theater de Vampire. Like, it's not like it's not like a really, like, cool name. It's just like Vampire Theater is the name of it. Like, oh, they weren't, like, putting a lot of brain power into names here. So they go and they get to meet all the other vampires, and in particular this vampire named Armand, who's the one who invited Louis in the first place. And he's like the hot shit vampire. He's like the leader vampire here. And he looks very young, and he's like blonde and golden, they say, and he's very young looking, but he's like 400 years old. Like, he's super old. And he's like, Louis, like, I like your style. Like, we should hang out. And Louis like, you know, like, samesies. Like, I kind of into you too. Like, they have, like, this connection, right? So they meet all these vampires. And honestly, like, Louis and Claudia kind of thinks a lot of the vampires are shitty. Like, Armand is fine, I guess, but a lot of them are just like, they're just like, you're like a stereotypical, like, vampire. Like, think Goth Bar. Like, that's what they are. And she's like, I think they're trying too hard. Like, none of them really are into these ones. Especially, like, this other vampire there. His name is Santiago. And he's an asshole. He doesn't like Louis. He doesn't like Claudia. He wants them gone. He's just like, he's got it out for them. He doesn't like them. But on the good side here, like, Louis and Armand hang out more, and Armand's actually a good vampire teacher, and he teaches them all this cool vampire shit. So that's, like, a positive. Louis learns a lot from Armand, and basically Armand also has, like, human servants he keeps around, and he just, like, drinks from them every once in a while. but he doesn't kill any of them. He just like takes sips, you know? Like, I'll have a little here and a little there, and I'm good and they're good. Which is so fucking smart. It's like, here is a replenishable resource. Like, why waste your food? You know? And frankly, something Louis might be into. Like, why go around killing people? You obviously find it distasteful. You might as well just keep a few alive. So like I was saying, Louis and Armand are hanging out like a lot. And Armand's like, hey, we should be besties. Like, let's go hang out. We're gonna be best friends. Let's be companions. And it's like, it's not really like a romantic love or a familial love. It's like a vampire love. It's completely like has its own flavor kind of thing going on here. So they're like in love, but not in a way that like humans experience it, I guess. And they're gonna go off and be like living together, but like Louis doesn't want to leave Claudia, and Claudia's all uppity about it. She's like, I fucking hate you. By the way, you killed me. Remember when you killed me and now I'm stuck as a 5-year-old? Like, there's a lot of strife in between Louis and Claudia, and they just go back and forth for like a long time because there's a lot of growing strife. Claudia feels like he's gonna leave her and she's gonna be alone, and then she also kind of wants that because she's like, fuck you, Louis, you killed me. But at the other side, she's like, I don't know anybody else, so like we're stuck together. It's like a Lestat and Louis situation, but now it's Louis and Claudia. So it's like all messed up and also strangely romantic. It kind of bothers me. Again, you know, like Louis is still waxing poetic to Claudia, saying, no, we're wed, you're like my wife. And I'm like, she's 5, her body is 5. I mean, there's no sex in the book. They do reference, like, vampires don't really do that. They don't have sex anymore. They just get off on killing. So I'm like, it's not like a sexual love between them, but like he's like really like kissing this like 5-year-old and like being like, you're my best companion. Like, we're wed. I love you. And it's weird. It's like the visual is not okay and I can't get it out of my brain. And this whole like messy, emotional, like 3-way romancy without being romantic love story kind of comes to a head. And Claudia's like, listen, you're gonna leave me for Armand. Frankly, I'm cool with it. We need space. Like, we need to not be around each other. So here's what we're gonna do. Louis, guess what? I brought this lady home. Her name's Madeline. She's totally down to be my vampire mom. You're gonna go turn her. She's gonna be my mom. We're gonna hang out. It's gonna be good. I asked her. She's totally fine with it. And Louis like, I am not fine with it. I don't want to do this. And like, you know, because he's self-hating and mopey and like scared. And he wants to be human again. And he's holding on to that humanity so hard. And then like basically Claudia's like, but please. And so he relents and he makes her into a vampire. And it kind of fucks him up because he's like, this was the only thing I said I wouldn't do. I feel like I died again because he's very dramatic. So, you know, it's not a good situation there either. And then again, they just go on for a while. Nothing happens. They just live together for a while, kind of like mom and dad and the kid. They're just playing house, the most fucked up vampire house ever. So they just go live together and they do stuff for a while. So, remember when all shit hit the fan before? Well, all shit hits the fan again. So one night, right? Santiago, the asshole vampire, and a bunch of other vampires, they all show up in Louis' house and they're like, we're taking you, blah, and they like kidnap Madeline and Claudia and they beat the snot out of Louis and they take him too and they bring him all back to the theater. And then, the shit's gonna hit the fan again, everybody, because you know who's at the fucking theater? Lestat. Motherfucking Lestat. He found them across the ocean. Like, oh boy, this is obsession. He's like, hey, besties. Like, fucking Lestat. And he's been talking shit to all the other vampires. He's like, hey, guess what? Claudia tried to murder me. And by the way, like vampires murdering each other is like illegal. You're not allowed to do that, which is stupid. They're allowed to kill everything else, but not each other. It's very pot and kettle, frankly. But anyway, you're not allowed to kill other vampires. So Santiago's like, ooh, you're in trouble and I get to deal with it because I don't like you, because he's being an asshole. This is like his like thing. And Lestat's still kind of a piece of shit. He's like, but wait, like, no, not Louis. Like, Louis, come hang out with me again. Remember, we're besties. We're gonna go back to New Orleans. It's cool. Like, fuck Claudia, but we're gonna go be besties again. You know, just, his delusion is insane. And Louis's like, fuck you, no. You got me arrested by asshole vampires. So Lestat does not get it, what's happening right now. He's like, oh no, I thought this was gonna work out well for me, and it did not. Santiago and the other vampires, right? They take Louis and they lock him in like a little tiny coffin. And then they put him in a wall, and then they brick up the wall around him. So he's like double, like, in this wall. And he's like, Armand's gotta show up. Armand is like their leader. He'll show up. He'll fix this. Claudia will be fine because he's really scared about Claudia because they got her too. And he doesn't know what they're doing to her. So he's like, okay, Armand, you gotta show up, buddy. You gotta show up. And you know who doesn't show up? Armand. He doesn't show fucking up. He doesn't. And it's like the next day, he finally shows up and he breaks Louis out of the wall that they bricked him into. And Louis, he's like, oh my gosh, I gotta save Claudia. I gotta go save Claudia. So he like goes, he's running around and he sees all the other vampires and Lestat, and they're just chilling. They're just sitting around being vampires. They don't do a whole lot. And Lestat is very distraught. Probably because, you know, he thought he was going to be besties with Louis again. And Louis like, no. And also he's holding like this thing. And it turns out it's Claudia's dress. And he's just been holding it. And Lestat is like really upset. And he's just like, I didn't think I would feel bad about this, but like I feel really bad about this. And he's like begging Louis to forgive him. And he's like, I didn't know this was gonna happen, and I feel bad. And apparently it's too late because the vampires, they lock Claudia and Madeline in this room and they let them get burnt by the sun. So they're dead. They're dead. They're ashes now. And like Louis finds it and he's like, blah! He loses his ever-loving shit about it. It's like, no. Like he is his like Claudia was his whole world for so long, like his daughter and wife, which is weird. But like there's a weird relationship there, and they killed her. And it was fucking Lestat's fault. And he's like, fuck you, Lestat. Like, this is why we're not friends anymore, because you fucking suck. And he leaves, and he's all upset. And Armand, he, like, follows him, and he's like, hey, I couldn't stop them. I'm sorry, I couldn't stop them. And Louis like, get the fuck out of here. Yeah, you could. You could have stopped them. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, he calls him out on his shit. He's like, you're their fucking leader, Armand. You could have stopped them. You just didn't. Go fuck yourself. By the way, just don't go back to the theater. That's the only, like, good thing I'm doing for you, fucker. And, like, he runs off. And, like, Armand's like, okay. So, a few days go by, right? And Louis, he has hatched a plan. And he goes to the theater, like, when it's almost dawn, right? He's like 20 minutes till dawn. And he goes in there and he brings all this kerosene and he dumps it all over the place. And in signature Louis style, he burns down the theater. This is the third building he's burned down. He just keeps burning down buildings. Like, that's his solution to, like, a lot of his problems. So he burns down the building and he gets in another fight with Santiago and he just cuts Santiago's head off. It goes, like, flying around. So now shit's getting crazy. Now there's, like, vampire fights. And he just burns the whole thing down. Armand wasn't there. And he's like, fine, fuck all y'all bitches. Even if, like, the fire doesn't get you, you can't go anywhere. The sun's coming up. The fucking fire department will come. They'll find you. They'll bring you out in the sun and you'll all die. Fuck all of you. He killed them all. Because, like, Louis lost his fucking shit. Honestly, this is, like, the villain origin story part of this. He's like, yes, I finally murdered something and I feel good about it. Like, it was, like, the turning point for Louis, basically. Armand, he tracks down Louis eventually after Louis, you know, did his whole burn down the theater, like, act. And basically, you know, Armand could have told them that Louis is gonna pull some shit, and he didn't. He just, like, left the theater and he left them all to die. So, you know, there's that. And also, like, Armand, he made sure all of, like, the human servants weren't at the theater either. He got rid of all of them. So, like, because he knew Louis was gonna fuck some shit up. And he's just like, Louis would probably feel bad about it if he killed a bunch of humans too. So, like, you know, like, Louis doesn't forgive him, but it helps. He, like, aided in his revenge story and also, like, thought of Louis' feelings. So, like, there's that. And you know what? Louis doesn't know any more vampires again. He killed all the rest of them he knew. He's alone. Except for Lestat, but fuck Lestat. So he's like, well, all right, Armand, I guess we're best friends now. Let's go hang out. And then again, you know, time goes on and they just do stuff. They, like, they leave Paris. They travel around the world. They go all over the place. Louis is fundamentally a different person now. Because you know how Louis was before, where he was so full of love for humanity, and he was like, oh, my morals, like, I'm still human, I find love in art and all this kind of stuff. That's all dead now. Like, Louis died when Claudia died, essentially. Like, that whole, like, I'm still mortal version is gone. Like, Louis is very different now. He doesn't really feel anything anymore. He's just, I guess he's become a vampire in all of the emotional sense. And eventually Armand is like, hey, Louis, like, why don't we go back to New Orleans? Like, you haven't been there in a really long time. Maybe it'll, like, spark joy? I don't know. And, like, Louis eventually is like, all right, let's go to New Orleans, whatever. So they go. And Armand finally lets this fly. It's probably been, like, 50 years. They've been, like, traveling for a hot minute now. And he finally, like, tells him, he's like, oh, yeah, you know, I didn't tell you this ever, but, like, Lestat wasn't in the building when you burned it down. Like, he wasn't there. He's probably still alive. Maybe he's in New Orleans? I guess kind of, like, throws out that little, like, thought nugget on the situation. And Louis is like, oh, well, okay, maybe I should go find Lestat. So eventually he does that, and he just tracks him down. And Lestat is also, like, a shell of his former self. He's just, like, decrepit and living in the shitty little house and, like, lonely because everybody's still leaving him because he's still a piece of shit. Like, he's made other vampires and they don't want to hang out with him either. So he's just like, meh. He's, like, really weak and, like, decrepit in this little house, and, like, he's scared of everything because he doesn't really understand the modern world very well. There's, like, sirens, and he's horrified, and he's like a little shell of Lestat, basically. And and of course he's, like, begging Louis to stay with him. He's like, Louis, come be my friend again. Like, you're the only friend I got. Louis, please. And it's really sad because I know, like, Lestat sucks, but, like, I feel for him. He's so miserably lonely. And Louis' like, no. Like, no, I get it. Like, I wish you well, but, like, we're never hanging out again. Like, no. And, you know, he goes back to Armand and eventually he tells him, he's like, oh yeah, I found Lestat. It was, you know, it was fine. Like, he doesn't really care about anything. And Armand is, like, baffled. He's like, what? Like, I thought this would make you feel something because you were just, like, a blank of wood. Like, you have no personality anymore. All those things that I loved about you that I thought we were gonna be besties over, like, don't exist anymore. What is going on? And Louis like, yeah, motherfucker, you killed my family. Like, all of that Louis you like, you killed that day. Like, this is your fault. Don't you understand this? And Armand he never put it together. He never put it together that he was the one who destroyed Louis. And he's sad. And he's like, well, all right, I guess I'm gonna leave. And, like, they just part ways and that's it. And Louis doesn't really feel anything about it because he doesn't have feelings anymore. So, like, Armand leaves and he's sad. Louis doesn't feel anything. And that's, like, the end of Louis' story. Like, finally we're at the end of the interview with that kid. We kind of forgot that the kid was there. Remember in the beginning of the book, the kid who was doing the interview? He's still there. And he's like, all right, I'm done with my story. It's over now. Bye. And the kid's like, are you fucking kidding me? That's not the end of the story. That's a shitty end of the story. What are you talking about? Also, like, you gotta do a lot of cool shit being a vampire. Are you out of your goddamn mind? Make me a vampire. I'll hang out with you. We'll be buddies. It'll be fine. Like, I'll want to do vampire shit. And Louis like, did you not listen to a word I fucking said? Being a vampire is terrible. You're constantly lonely and it sucks. And you have to kill people all the time. It is terrible. I told you stories about babies getting killed and you're, like, cool with this. What is wrong with you? And so he just was like, blah, and he kind of gets really mad and he, like, bites the kid and drinks his blood and then the kid passes out. But he doesn't kill him because, like, the kid wakes up the next morning and Louis is gone. And he has all his little tapes he was recording the interview on. And he's like, oh shit, oh shit. And he rewinds it. And he goes back to the part where Louis says, like, the address of where he found Lestat. And he says, like, he writes it down and he takes his tapes and he gets in his car and drives off. So that's the end of the book. The kid goes off to find Lestat, I'm assuming. There you go. Interview with the Vampire. I feel like I've talked for so long because, like, this is like a book I should have read over more days than just 2. But, like, I didn't. So final thoughts. Overall, it was really good. Like, low-key, incredible. I gave it 5 stars. I hadn't ever read it before now, and I fully get it. I fully get why the hype is. It's great. Like, the way that, like, Anne Rice wrote Misery is, like, almost beautiful. And, like, the way that the vampires talk to each other and to humans, it's so foreign and doesn't make sense with like human morality, and like that you thought of that is like insane. Like there's a lot of little nuances here that are really, really cool. And I loved it. I loved it intensely. It's so good. And I already have like more books from the series. I got them at like library book sales back in the day. So I'm like, maybe I'll read more of this series. This is really good. I liked it a lot. And I drank so much wine and I read this book and it was really good. 5 stars. So on that note, let me know in the comments down below. Have you read any Anne Rice books? Have you read any Vampire Chronicles books? If so, like, what are your thoughts? Are you into them? What are your favorite literary vampires? I don't know. Anne Rice has her own flavor of vampire. They're kind of very specific. Do you like them? Let me know in the comments down below. Let's talk about vampires. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. Also, hey, if you want exclusive content, I have a Patreon and the link is in the description down below. You can click that and get cool exclusive content. And I will see you all very soon. Bye!